Okay, so I got another one for you guys today. And this one is going to be about my experience with the Saint of Death, or the Santa. So, this is something that I thought for a while about posting, but I didn't really get around to it because I didn't really know how to put it out there. But now I feel like it's the right time to do it, so I'm just going to put it out there. So, right now, my girlfriend, her patron, is one of the saints of death. And there are there is a lot of interaction that I had to adjust to when it came to her having the altar within our living space and being around us. So first off, I just want to start off by saying this. Uh, this really all started with me adjusting to these energies when we found a specific shop that basically was a huge devotion to her. Um, there were huge, huge statues in there, like life-size statues, 8 feet tall in this place, blue, yellow, a green one, and then there was also just the traditional black one. uh, a lot of offerings, cigars, everything. We were taken up to the top level of this shop because the owner um, felt a connection to us. And he also told me a little bit about some things that were going on with me in my past. And, you know, I love when stuff like this happens because of the fact that I don't just believe anybody when I walk into places. I think a lot, but I break down the illusions when it comes to someone trying to pull the wool over my eyes. So when he told me specific coordinates to where I had been in my past, and also specific scenery and this city, I believed him, and I wanted to listen to what he had to say. He told me some things about myself, that there were some connections that I had that he wanted to get rid of, and he wanted to know how we should move forward with doing that. So he introduced me to that concept, and we're talking about that. So I decided that I'm going to go through and I'm going to go with him and get all this stuff done. Um, we end up going and we meet up with him again, probably after 3 weeks or so. We go into his other shop because he owns two shops. We go into his other shop, and when we go into this shop, he, he's telling me about just what he does and everything, and what he specializes in. And he was a mage, a freaking warlock, and he specialized in black magic. But he was a hell of a healer, and very, very intuitive, which was highly impressive to me because in the city that I had lived in Fresno, California, um, I just hadn't had too many run-ins with people who I felt were actually legit. Not to say that people aren't legit, but for myself, I like to be proven and I like to be shown, whether or not there's someone that I can trust when it comes to the information that they're giving out. Uh, Before we went to that store, I skipped a part, sorry. Before we went to that store, we were at the first one, the big location. As I was in the room, I felt the need to approach these statues and go to the altar. So I, I wanted to kind of pay respects. So I kind of kneeled down in front of her, and communication was established immediately. As you know, I am a clairaudient, and I'm also a telepath. So I heard with my physical ears, but also mentally, Spanish being spoken to me in a woman's voice. A very mature woman, probably mid 40s. This is what her voice sounded like to me. And in Spanish, she was telling me basically, yes, you can enter here. I'm glad that you came. I'm glad that you listened to my message. Before I go any further into this, I just want to start off by saying this. I don't speak great Spanish, and I didn't know what that was that she was saying to me at the time until when she was done. In my head, I heard a translation into English. So I was a little baffled by, what I was experiencing. I stayed knelt down, and I put my head down for a second, and I felt this rush of energy come into my body. It felt really peaceful and very loving. Um Almost like when I had, first encountered Anubis. So I stand back up and I asked the guy, can I meditate in here? Because I felt like I really wanted to meditate in there. I loved the energy that was in there. I loved how everything felt. I loved how everything was set up. I wanted to stay because it felt like a second home to me. And I had never even been there. So he continues on. He's talking to my girlfriend. I go back and I'm looking at everything. I see a staff and I'm looking at this staff and I feel all of this power coming from this staff and going into my third eye. It was just the spirit of this huge wolf that was just, just patrolling the premises, patrolling the entire room, patrolling the store, walking up and down the stairs, watching me, which was freaking fascinating to me because of the fact that I felt that this was one of his totems, and it made me more so feel like I could be comfortable with this, with this guy. So we continue on talking, and then that's when we decide we're gonna go through with getting this, this cleansing done, and skip back to where I was. We go into this store and we purchase a black pendulum. So I buy a black pendulum. She buys a statue for her because, as I said, she's a devotee. That's her patron, and she brings it home. So when she brings it home, the Spanish starts becoming a lot more apparent, and it becomes a lot more consistent. So I'm hearing so much Spanish in my head, and I'm looking this stuff up. I'm looking up what she's talking about, what this stuff is meaning. I'm hearing the accent the right way. And when I'm telling my girlfriend what is being told to me, she's smiling because there's actual contact that's being made with her goddess, which was very interesting to me. So I didn't really think too much into this at first, only that, I still was skeptical of how this was happening. I was trying to understand how this link was established and how exactly I'm able to understand and hear this Spanish and get translations while I'm hearing Spanish when I don't even speak it. And I remembered that I had read this book by I don't want to get the name wrong, but there's a guy, I think his name is uh, Richard Webb, and then there was another book by Larry Dweller, and these books were on astral projection and communication with spirits. And it's said that when you are in the spirit world, there's no language barrier. So you can understand all languages. All languages are translated for you. And even if you've never heard it before, you know exactly what language it is. And it directly translates to the language that you can understand. So it kind of calmed me down a little bit, knowing that I had, had experience with this stuff. And it made me believe more in her God, which I felt like it was the respectful thing to do. It was more so, kind of us establishing a relationship, if you may, because I wanted to, establish boundaries, but I also wanted to pay my respects to her if she was going to be within my home, especially if she was going to be providing protection like she did. She actually provided me better protection than King Paimon did, which was very interesting to me. and she wasn't even my patron. I also, want to go on to say that when we had her in our room at night, it was very interesting because my girlfriend would have specific offerings that she had on set up on her altar. We would hear her partaking in these offerings. We had little bags of bread and different candies, and we could hear the bags being crinkled and touched at night. Um, it wasn't any bugs or anything because that's the first thing that I, was thinking of, but it literally felt like there was a hand. I mean, it sounded like to me and felt because when I hear, I can feel what's going on as well. It sounded and it felt like there was an actual hand that was going into the bags and eating the food, which I was laying down looking at my girlfriend. My girlfriend's looking at me. So we're facing each other. There's no one else within the room because we lock our door at night. There's no other explanation as to who or what could be messing with or crinkling the bag. So it drove me more into thinking, okay, wow, there's actually something to this. This was my first time actually experiencing an actual altar and seeing how it works with being in your space and partaking in rituals, because I also started asking her for certain favors, and she also came through for me. So she, I can say, definitely has a special place in my heart and within my energy field as well, because she definitely came through. So I respect her for sure. And I approve of my girl, like, having that connection to her. At times, my girlfriend and I, we kind of would get into a little conflict about it because of the fact that she was feeling as if there was a stronger connection with me than herself. But as you guys know, I am obsessed with this stuff. So I felt like, of course, I was going to have these connections. I am literally obsessed. It is what I live and breathe. I love this stuff. I study every single day. I think it's beautiful, that we have all of these different worlds and realms. And I, I don't forget about these things for a second. I could be playing video games and I'm deeply immersed in another dimension, studying something else while I'm here. I could be involved in a conversation with someone, but etherically I'm gone and I'm talking to, other species. I'm looking into their ways of life. I'm, learning new things about myself and how to empower myself. So it's definitely, it definitely goes to show, like, I believe in her now, but not only do I believe in her, I respect her. And I also recommend those of you who had a want to communicate with her to go ahead and do it, because it's actually pretty awesome. But I will say, those who are devotees to her, it is said that if you are, connected to her, there are things that start to happen if you don't kind of keep up your end of the bargain, which makes sense to me. It's all respect. It's kind of like when you're communicating with people as well. When you have a deal, you got a deal. But that was my experience. What do you guys think about that? I feel like I came out of that experience with, with more of a clear head, but also more of an understanding of a different kind of deity, which was pretty beautiful to me. Till the next video.